welcome to another video. This one is about how to become a helpful teammate. So I'm not going to focus as much on the stuff inside of Overwatch because teamwork, being coachable, being a teammate, etc. isn't only about the stuff that happens in game. It's not only about the comms, the positions, the timings, etc. There's tons of videos on just those stuff, so I'm going to provide something that there isn't much of, and it's the the insight in yourself, for example, on how you work, and by understanding how you think and how you feel, you can understand how others feel and think, and you can affect others in new ways, basically. So, for example, you will often hear that you should be a good teammate and that you should cherish the bonds you have with your teammates, that you should be bringing them up when they're feeling down, all that stuff, and that's something you should do. But you also don't often hear how you should be that you should be a helpful teammate, and especially not how you should be a helpful teammate. So it's expected of you to know how to behave when you enter a team, how to cooperate with others, how to be open to learn, how to come in game, all that stuff. And you might wonder at some point in your career, when you're climbing up, etc., how do you learn teamwork? For example, how do I teach myself that? What does it mean to be coachable? Well, the answer lies in by understanding that by being helpful to others than only yourself, you will be coachable. You will be able to work together with others, and being open to learn isn't the only thing, for example, in being coachable. You can be an easy learner, but if you disregard information someone gives you, there's no use in giving you information, right? So let's take this for an example. Imagine that you're in a scrim, you have made some big mistake, and you have no idea how to fix it. Let's say that you're playing D.Va and your bombs never get kills, and you have no idea how to fix it, and neither has anyone said anything, but you're asking what's wrong, like tell me what I should do, tell me what I'm doing wrong, etc. Because it's easier to know what you shouldn't do than knowing what you should do at first. And when you ask that, you don't want a teammate to always agree with you and say that no, you're doing fine, it's just the enemy getting lucky, etc. You don't want that, because that's sugarcoating. You don't want someone to hide the truth from you, essentially. And when you understand what it means to be truthful to yourself and others, you should also know that when you expect someone to tell you the truth, you want to tell them the truth as well, but you don't want to mix in your emotions in it as well, if that makes sense. You don't want to sound like you're venting on them. You don't want to sound like you're being nice to them, etc. You want to give them the objective truth, and you will learn that short-term pain is better than long-term agony, if that makes sense. And by saying that, for example, it might feel like hurtful. At first for new players, it's hurtful to hear some criticism. It's essential. It's nothing bad. And if you sugarcoat it, for example, if you swipe problems under the rug for weeks or months, you'll end up with a huge problem later down the line that's way more difficult to deal with than if you dealt with it when it first started, when it was a small problem. There's a saying that a small negative should be dealt with before it's becoming a big negative. And if you tell the truth to yourself, you don't hide the truth from yourself by saying that the enemy is lucky all the time, that you didn't know what to do. Be accountable for yourself, like hold yourself accountable for your own mistakes and for the good things as well. You want to give yourself a pat in the back, you know, when you do something good, and not only talk about the mistakes, because then you are too negative. And the same way, you don't want to be too positive all the time. You want to have a balance, and you want to give that balance to others as well. Another example, a helpful teammate is there to help routines stay routines. So for example, if you have a team and you check out VODs after practice every day, suddenly you notice that a teammate probably isn't feeling it, or maybe they haven't been watching with you for a week or 2 weeks, who knows, and they haven't really opened up, they seem distant, and it's natural to feel that they aren't loyal anymore to the team, maybe they don't like you anymore, etc. It's very natural to be self-critical, but the same way here as before, you want to be truthful to yourself. You don't want to put a bias where, or you don't want to take a side where you're the one that's bad. Because you can't really understand what your teammate is thinking before you ask them. So a helpful teammate asks what's up, like invite them back to the VODs, you know, give them a push in the back, you know, with a bump of energy, because sometimes we just run out of energy and we can't fight back, for example, when procrastination, etc. comes and we just have no energy to fight back. And then if you're there as the teammate and you give some bump of energy, saying like, come on man, come watch with us, it's just one VOD, you know, something like that, it's much easier to be included or feel included, because your teammate might go through something, or maybe they have a bad day or bad week, bad month, etc. You shouldn't assume that your teammate is valuing you less and less, or the team less and less. Another one is to be helpful to others. You want to compete with them, but not in the same way you compete with the enemy when you're in game. You want to give them a challenge, and you want them to give you a challenge as well. For example, if you're a DPS and you have another DPS player with you in your team, 1v1 each other, like try to beat each other, try to find ways you can compete with each other in healthy ways, of course, because you don't want an environment where everything is positive 24/7. The same way you don't want negativity 24/7. You want a mix of everything, because otherwise you get bored. For example, if there's negativity all the time, well, you're starting to feel bad, you'll start to feel anxiety, you start to feel fear, you might lose confidence easily. If everything is positive all the time, you get complacent, you get overconfident, you'll remain in a bubble, and any small negativity might seem like a big negative object, etc. And you might not like it, but negativity is essential, as bad as it might sound, but you want to keep it to a healthy amount where you're not supposed to roast someone, you're not supposed to flame anyone. You simply give constructive feedback. And the constructive stuff, it can be something negative, but you can put it in a light or in a tone that's helpful to others. For example, if a Tracer never gets kills with her pulse bombs, but she manages to get stick them on enemies, maybe it's on tanks, well, what you can say is, you're not getting much value out of sticking the bombs on tanks because they have way too much HP. Try to get them on an Ana or a Zen or something, and try to play around corners and catch them off guard, etc., flank, etc. That's how you can be helpful as a teammate with negativity, for example. And you'll feel different things, like you'll be furious, you'll be sad, you'll be happy, you'll be confused. And it's because emotions gauge progress. So if you think about it, if you're in game, you're attacking, let's say, any map with dive or first point attack, and you expect to dive to kill someone, but then you get stopped and you didn't expect to get stomped. well, then you might feel frustrated because there's a stop in the production, or there's a stop in the progress to a goal, and the goal is capping first point. So when there's a stop and it's unexpected, that's when tilt sets in, for example, but it can come in degrees. You can practice the defense in your head, against tilt, and you might not feel as much. And for example, if you lose your career or if you get kicked out of a team, for example, because you simply haven't performed, well, then you might feel super sad, you might feel anxious, you might feel confused, etc. And if something happens the way it should happen, for example, if a dive goes well, you'll feel happy, of course, you'll feel pumped up. And the reason for mentioning this is because when you understand why you're tilted, why you're happy, why you're sad, etc., you can change things based on how you analyze yourself, basically. For example, if you know that everyone is getting frustrated and you know why you're getting frustrated, well, then you can try and figure out why everyone else is, and you can try to come up with a solution instead of basically guessing. And by guessing, let's say that you just try to dive somewhere else and you still get killed. You try to dive some other position and you still get killed. You never come to a solution efficiently. Instead, you basically take desperate shots in the dark. And it's a unhealthy way to solve tilt, for example. So this is called checking in with yourself. You're just checking in how you're feeling, what's going on. And when you know what's going on with you, you center yourself and you go back in there, you make a plan, whatever. And it's easier for your teammates to follow you or to bounce back, for example. When you feel an emotion, you want to be, well, you want to feel healthy, of course. So you should try to aim to balance yourself so that you're feeling healthy. And sometimes you might feel that there's too much positivity, when maybe you're trying to do VODs, go through VODs or talk strategies, and maybe everyone is just shouting, playing, attention out the window, etc. Then you need to add some negativity, and it's healthy because it puts everyone else back in line, so to say. Not in a bad way, but I just don't have a better word for it right now. And the same goes for when there's negativity. You can feel it sort of in the atmosphere. You can feel like the temperature of the team. That's a term I use, like what's the temperature of the team. And if it's too hot, then you maybe need to cool down a bit. If it's too cold, then you might need to heat it up a bit. Like if everyone is down, the way you can heat up things is by giving some confidence, giving some motivation. You try to empower others. You let others be the hero, basically. And you make others the hero. And there's different ways of doing that. For example, if you're playing on stage, you can say, "Good job, dude," and give a fist bump. That's a super small thing, but it helps so much. And you can say, "Good job calling that. Keep the calls coming." When someone does a good job target calling. If a Zen is good on calling out his discords, just say like, "Good job, Zen. Keep those discords coming." And those are small ways you can boost people in negative situations, but just be careful with how much you do it, because you might give your teammates make them overconfident as well. So you just stop, before it happens. And keep thinking of a healthy balance. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You want to learn how to think about yourself. It goes hand in hand with the last video I made on how to self-reflect. And once you know how to self-reflect, you'll be able to figure out different ways you can apply it to situations in your team, like I mentioned in scrims. If something goes wrong and you don't know why, you ask them what's wrong, and if they don't give you a straight answer, ask in a different way that gives you the answer you need, basically. And if you notice that a teammate responds to you in a hostile way, maybe because the tone you had or whatever, it can be anything in the world, then you don't have to take it personally. You just see what's up and you try to work with them. And when you are in their position, it might happen, they will try to work with you back as well. And by being helpful like that, your other teammates will also be helpful back to you.